Okay, year 11. So we now arrive at paper 2. All right, so this is the big one, 2 hours, 15 minutes. So again, we're going to do the same as we did with paper 1. We're just going to have a work through. We're going to kind of talk through what you should be doing at what point. Okay, so the first thing you need to do when you open the paper, and luckily someone has already done this for us, that won't be something that you get in your exam, but straight away we're going to look to make sure that we've got George Orwell Animal Farm, i.e. the book you've studied, not one of these other books that you haven't got a clue about, and we're going to make sure that we find Power and Conflict, because don't forget, there is another half to the anthology, the love and relationships. We don't want to touch that. We want to make sure we're finding Animal Farm and Power and Conflict. So we're going to scan through, past all these books that we haven't got a clue about, so we're not going to go near. And then finally, we find ourselves faced with 2 options for Animal Farm. So what we have got is, we have got the suffering of the animals in Animal Farm, or, because don't forget, the key word here is or, we have got the way that Napoleon is presented as a ruthless leader. So we would have a look and we'd think to ourselves, right, which one of these have I got the most ideas about now? I think I am going to go with Napoleon, because I've got lots of ideas about Napoleon, and I think I can really think about that. So that's what we're going to start with. So we're going to start by thinking, right, what do we know about Napoleon? The first thought that comes to mind is that he carried a whip in his trotter. Okay, so that's one of the first things that I'm thinking of. I'm also thinking of the fact he has the dogs, so I'm just going to jot down dogs over here, okay? And we're going to talk about the fact that at one point we're told that these are fierce looking. All right, as fierce looking as wolves, I believe, is the quote. I'm not sure if that's the direct quote, so I'm going to leave that off for now, okay? And again, Napoleon himself is told to have a reputation at the beginning for getting his own way. So already I'm just throwing everything down that's anything to do with Napoleon, anything to do with Napoleon being a leader. Maybe I'll be able to find some. Okay, another wonderful idea that I always love to talk about, because I'm that kind of guy, is the pile of corpses. All right, that he kind of has beneath him as he's kind of killed all the people that are arguing against his kind of rule. Going back to the dogs, I was just remembering that he took them away, okay, from their mothers. And remember, we're talking about him being a ruthless leader, so that kind of thing is what we're looking for. Okay, we also see really early on the fact when he's placing himself, okay, in front of the buckets. So it's a very early sign of what's kind of to come. And we should always remember that the more we can kind of talk about him throughout, so we can talk about him early on with the buckets, and we can talk about him, the fact later on we kind of see the true ruthlessness of his leadership when he's carrying a whip in his trotter. We also have the wonderful quote, some of you will know is one of my favourites, boiled alive, because it kind of sums up the novel in that one kind of phrase that he's boiling these animals alive slowly. So I think between us there, I'm thinking we're going to have enough there kind of to talk about in terms of when we come to kind of write our answer. But before we do that, we all know that we now go and we find our poetry, because we don't want all those quotes floating around in our head while we're spending 45 minutes writing Animal Farm. So we scan through, I have a look at this, I'm about to start, but then I realise it is the AQA anthology, but it is not the love and relationship. So I don't want to touch that because I've never seen any of that. However, these look more like it. So here we go. So the first thing, the question we've all been asking, what's coming up? Well, on this example, it's the emigre. All right, so that means, first thing I do, I'm looking at the emigre, but I'm thinking I don't need to worry about the emigre for now. What I really need to worry about is what is the theme? And the theme here is conflict. So really, my thought process now is, let's have a look at the list of poems. These are the poems that we've studied. These are the 15 poems, and I'm being asked by the AQA, right, we're using emigre anyway, so where is the emigre? So I don't need to worry about that one. That's given to us. Basically, these other 14, which one do I want to talk about in terms of conflict? And I think the one I really want to talk about, because the one that I think has a lot of mental conflict and someone who's really kind of struggling, is Remains. All right, so where I'm looking down my list, I'm trying to find him. There we go, Remains by Simon Armitage. So that's the one, because I think there's a real kind of that conflict inside his own brain. So the first thing I'm going to do is write anything I can think of to do with Remains and anything with conflict. So straight away, the drink and the drug, won't flush him out. Right, so that idea, that internal conflict, which is kind of the entire point of the poem, it's the battle he's fighting. He's left the war behind, but he's now fighting the battle. And again, we talk about leaving the war behind, so there's that real key moment in that poem. You've kind of got the first half, the second half, the end of story, kind of as he leaves the war zone, except not really. Because the entire point is that this conflict is the idea of the things that you get at war, what happens when they come home, and that conflict of trying to exist as a normal civilian once you return onto civilian row having been in a war zone. So really, I'm looking at those two, I'm thinking, is there anything else I might use? Potentially Blood Shadow, okay, for that idea that there's a conflict in his brain that won't leave him. But I'm quite happy that I may have plenty there to work with. So again, I'm looking at that. I'm not going to pick anything out of the emigre for now, because that's a job for another time. And I'm starting to think, shall I turn over and have a look at the unseen? Of course I shan't, because what would be the point? Because there's nothing I can carry through to that unseen. I'm going to leave that. That's going to be my little treat once I've spent 90 minutes looking at this. And at this point, I can go return to Animal Farm. I can start now thinking about what I'm going to do when answering this question.